He didn't say much, wore a flannel shirt, jeans, and a baseball cap with no emblem, and shot like time had forgotten him, but precision had never left him. Martin was always the first to arrive at the shooting range, 6:45 a.m., sharp, 15 minutes before the gates opened at 7, and he never made a sound louder than a nod at the man behind the counter, never gave a rank, never exchanged pleasantries, just signed in with a last name, Martin. Then quietly walked down the gravel path to lane 7, the furthest from the building, away from Bluetooth speakers and loud conversations, away from bravado, jokes, and the noise of men who didn't yet know the weight of silence. He wore the same faded jeans, the same light brown flannel shirt, with the sleeves rolled just below the elbows, and a brown baseball cap that may once have been blue. Its bill curved just enough to shade his eyes without drawing attention. His boots were worn but clean, his gait slow but steady, and he never brought more than he needed. A pistol case, a single box of 45 ACP, and a dented stainless steel thermos that never left the wooden bench beside him. The regulars called him Pops, or the old guy, and most assumed he was just a retired trucker burning ammo and time. Until one day, a Navy recruit named Jared, lean and sharp-eyed with a trident stitched onto his gym bag, and confidence, dripping from his stance, noticed something different. Not the man's volume, which was non-existent, nor his posture, which was relaxed, but his rhythm. 3 shots. Reset. 2 shots. Reset. Like a heartbeat trained for war. There were no wasted bullets, no twitch in the trigger finger, just the sound of a man who had done this long before shooting became sport, long before it was something you filmed for Instagram. Jared glanced sideways and caught a glimpse of the old man's forearm as he reloaded. A faded tattoo, worn by time and sun, not flashy, not for show, just 2 digits and a symbol. Subtle, terrifying, real. The kind you didn't ask for. The kind you earned. "Excuse me, sir," Jared asked when Martin paused. "Is that first recon?" Martin didn't smile, didn't nod, just emptied the magazine with a final, perfect shot, placed his pistol down, and looked Jared straight in the eyes. "Once," he said, and that was it. But it was enough. Enough to hush the entire firing line, enough to turn Jared's curiosity into respect, enough to draw a line between those who carried stories and those who lived them. Jared returned to his lane, tried to keep shooting, but the rhythm was gone. The swagger had evaporated, and his focus kept drifting left, to the man who made silence louder than any gunshot. Martin kept shooting. Deliberate, clean, no theatrics. Every movement was heavy with memory. Jared's teammates kept laughing, cracking jokes, betting on shot groups. But Jared watched Martin, and for the first time, he understood what mastery without applause looked like. After 30 rounds, Martin stopped, cleaned his weapon with a faded cloth from his pocket, wiped the thermos, and prepared to leave. Jared approached again, hesitating, then asked, "Sir, when did you serve?" Martin paused, then replied, 66 to 77, Recon, Southeast Asia. Jared's breath caught. That tattoo wasn't a souvenir, it was First Recon, deep ops, black zone missions, names never spoken, files never opened, the kind of deployments where dog tags didn't come home, and medals were declined out of grief and guilt. "Were you in Laos?" Jared asked, and Martin nodded. "Among other places." And in that instant, the room fell away, the noise dissolved, and only Lane 7 remained, echoing with something sacred. Some of the younger shooters noticed Jared's posture shift, noticed how his respect had become reverence. "Did you train with SEALs?" Jared asked. Martin gave the faintest smile. "Back then, Everyone did a little bit of everything. You swam, you survived, or you didn't." Jared chuckled. "My CO told us about a mission in '71. A recovery op deep in the jungle guy. Led the exfil while wounded. Carried 2 men under fire. They said it was classified for years." Martin didn't blink. A lot of things were. And just like that, the door closed again, not slammed, but gently shut, enough to remind Jared that some stories weren't meant to be told, only carried. Martin stood, stretched, and began to walk away. Jared snapped to attention, not out of protocol, but instinct, and called, "Sir, thank you for your service." Martin paused, turned back, approached, and placed a heavy coin in Jared's hand, first recon emblem on one side, the words "Still Here" on the other. He leaned in and said, "You'll know when it's time to stand still. Until then, earn it." Then walked into the morning light, disappearing without salute, without fanfare, leaving behind a silence louder than memory. Jared stood frozen, the coin heavy in his palm, the gravity of what had just happened slowly crashing in. He had seen pretenders before, had seen men fake valor, but this was something sacred, unspoken, a truth that lived in posture, not proclamation. Back at the front desk, Jared showed the coin to the bored clerk sipping coffee. "You know this guy?" The clerk blinked. "Yeah, old guy from lane 7, Martin. First name? Just says T. Martin in the log. Signed up 10 years ago. No credit card, always pays in cash. No email." "Old school." Jared leaned in. "Why?" The clerk shrugged. "Only thing he ever said to me was, 'I didn't do it so you'd thank me.' When I tried to say thanks." That night, Jared couldn't sleep. He stayed up searching declassified reports, piecing together redacted files, until he found it. A line buried in a 1971 Macy v. SOG report. Sergeant Thomas Martin, 1st Recon, Laos. Evacuation under fire. 7 rescued, refused medevac, twice wounded, declined commendation. And at the end, status, still here. The EV. Words hit Jared like a hammer. This was what silence looked like. No books, no interviews, just decades of quiet, of Saturdays on a range, of 30 precise shots, and a thermos on a bench. Next Saturday, Martin returned. Same truck, same path, same nod at the desk. Jared and 3 teammates were already there, sitting. On the far bench, saying nothing, just watching, standing a little straighter. Martin didn't acknowledge them, didn't need to. Their respect wasn't for him. It was for what he carried. He shot, reloaded, shot again. No change in form, no flourish, just the rhythm of a man who had outlasted noise. Jared waited until a break, then approached and handed Martin a sealed box of 45. "I figured 30 wouldn't be enough today." Martin studied him, nodded once, and accepted. Later, as the scent of gunpowder faded, younger men walked by, one by one, not to speak, not to ask, just to nod, to say "sir" without irony. Even Patty, the kid who used to laugh, lingered. "We looked you up, some of us. You saved people." Martin wiped the rim of his thermos. They saved each other. And that was all. Jared sat beside him on the bench, and for a long time, they said nothing. Then Jared asked, "You ever think about teaching?" Martin exhaled. "Spent 30 years forgetting everything worth teaching." Jared nodded. "Some of us need to remember." Martin took a sip, the sky turning. Deep blue. "This isn't something you teach," he finally said. "You absorb it, quietly." And Jared answered, "That's why I'm still listening." Martin looked at him longer this time, then stood. Then talk less. They both chuckled, quietly, like an inside joke between generations. When he left, Martin didn't take the fresh box of ammo. He left it on the bench, a gesture more powerful than a speech. That afternoon, the range staff mounted a small brass plate above Lane 7. No hero, no legend, just reserved until he says otherwise. Martin never asked who placed it, never told them to take it down. He didn't need to. Some men teach with words, others with presence. He never told war stories, never raised his voice, never asked for thanks. He showed up, fired 30 shots, and left more impression than a dozen instructors shouting drills. He didn't need proof, didn't need recognition, only needed one recruit to notice the truth beneath his sleeve, to ask the right question. And from then on, every shot he fired taught more than any lecture ever could. So I ask you, have you ever met someone like Martin? A veteran who never boasted, never bragged, just stood quietly, with history in his hands, waiting for someone to care enough to see him? Because at Human Stories, we believe the most powerful stories don't scream. They wait. And if this story touched you, share it, subscribe, and help us keep these voices alive. Maybe next time you're at a range and you see an old man loading slowly, alone, steady, with something in his eyes that doesn't need words. Maybe you're standing next to Martin. The days passed, then weeks. Martin kept coming every Saturday, same time, same lane. He didn't talk more, but the space around him changed. Young men mirrored his movements, mimicked his loading style, brought their own thermoses, not to copy, but to honor, because they had learned it wasn't about shooting. It was about patience, humility, and listening when no one speaks. One day, Jared and Martin sat again on that bench. Jared spoke quietly. "We're starting a program for veterans who can't transition back." Martin pulled his cap down. "You want me to tell them stories?" Jared shook his head. "We want you to show them how not to lose themselves." Martin stayed quiet, then muttered, Maybe I'll teach them to reload." From that day on, Martin taught nothing formally, but everything silently. He showed how to stand when the world told you to fall, how to breathe through the chaos, how to be present without performance. The brass plate above Lane 7 remained untouched, a silent badge of honor for those who stayed long enough to understand what it meant. Years passed. Then one day, Martin didn't come. No announcement, no farewell, just absence. The men gathered. At the range knew what it meant, even if no one said it. Jared, now older, walked to Lane 7, placed a fresh box of ammo on the bench, and wrote on it, "For those who listen." No one touched it. No one removed the plate. Patty, now training young recruits, never told them about Martin, not directly. But sometimes, if they were quiet enough, he'd bring them to Lane 7 and just let them stand there. And if they were wise, they'd feel it. In the wood, in the silence, in the air. That someone had once stood there and changed everything without ever needing to say a word.